failure. A malfunction crashed the site yesterday, just a day after Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius praised the very same component that crashed as a model of efficiency and security. Ouch. Well, that particular malfunction was fixed, but it is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg, and no one's been taking responsibility for all that has gone wrong with the website. The question is, and there must be an answer to this at some point, where does the buck stop? Tom Foreman has been trying to figure it all out. And Tom, it would seem like an easy question to answer, but it isn't. How did it go so wrong?
Well, it would seem that way, wouldn't it? We know this. The Obamacare girl who was on the cover here, smiling young woman who graced the federal website, has disappeared. We don't know why. Maybe she stopped smiling amid all these problems. But it's just as well because too many people were involved with this from the start. That's what we're learning as this goes on. How did this go so wrong? In a perfect world, most would agree that the website should have been developed like this. The White House, President Obama, would establish some outlines, some goals. The Department of Health and Human Services, under Kathleen Sebelius, would come up with a plan to reach those goals. An agency, in this case, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, would hire computer programmers to make it all happen, and voila, there is your fully functional website. But from the beginning, it appears there was a political as well as a practical side to this effort. And as the policymakers dreamed up things for the website to do, programmers were not always in the loop to discuss if it was possible. Furthermore, you saw a few of the big companies hired for this job in front of Congress being grilled on what went wrong, but there were in fact dozens of subcontractors down here writing hundreds of millions of lines of computer code. Testimony indicates that some had little knowledge of how their work would coordinate with the work of others. They faced changing demands as political fights over this program raged, and communications between them all were sketchy. So you ended up with this incredibly tangled web of lines going on between here, between the White House, and between everyone. And in the end, plenty of commands were being given, but no one person was clearly in charge, including the president, who, as his own officials now say, was unaware that this tangled mess was building down here, Aaron. So the problem in finding who to blame is to say someone had to be responsible, and effectively everyone in the chain is saying, well, no, somebody else was in charge of this part of it. That's why it's so hard to pin this on one person.
Right. And of course, then the problem will be, well, do they try to do that and pin it on a person that no one's heard of? Or do they say, look, ultimately the buck stops, say, at the Kathleen Sebelius level? I mean, that's going to be the big question. And Tom, because it gets worse, right? This isn't like, let's just go untangle the web, which in and of itself would be very, very difficult to do, right? They're actually saying you might have to start from scratch, rewrite millions of lines of computer code to fix this. I mean, should they just possibly scrap the whole thing and start again, as some in Congress have suggested, or no?
You're absolutely right. There's some people out there who say, just shut it all down, start all over again. That's the way to solve it, especially after things like this weekend. But the administration basically says no, considering this website has already cost more than $300 million, and parts of it are working despite all of these troubles. So the White House has now put one guy in charge, Jeffrey Zients, with one company acting as the general contractor, trying to get back into this clean line of command that they should have had from the beginning. And they hope that if they can do this, they can have the website off the critical list by the end of November. But again, Aaron, if you see more things happen like happened this past weekend, you will hear more calls from people saying, scrap the whole thing, throw away the money, start over, even if you want Obamacare to work, and some, of course, don't want it to work. Aaron?
Right, well, it's a fair point. Some don't, but even some that do are coming around to that point of view. We'll see. Tom Foreman, thank you. And our sixth story out front.